With a desire to perform from the age of 5, John D. Domenico is now one of the busiest and hardest working character actors, writers, and entertainers in the United States. John has appeared on national television shows including The Today Show, The View, and dozens of appearances on Conan O'Brien. His uncanny impersonation of former President Donald J. Trump has garnered him sensational praise throughout all the industry. John's frequent appearances on Howard Stern's SiriusXM radio show has earned him high praise from Stern himself as the best Trump impersonator in the business. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John D. Domenico.
Hello, this is John D. Domenico, and it's time to face the music with Joby Rogers.
What impressionists have influenced you?
When I was a kid, like the first album I ever bought, I think I was 11. I forget the age, but a guy named David Fry, and he probably had the single most impact on me. And I bought his album, which was called Nixon, A 4-Year Fantasy. And it was a narratively structured like concept album. So from beginning to end, it was like a show, which would turn out to be his show that he did, his comedy show. But he did all the voices. He did 40 voices. And then the additional voices were by Gabe Kaplan, who after this album went on to do Welcome Back, Kotter, because this came out in the early 70s. But it just had such an impact on me because he structured stuff. Because when I was a kid watching Impressionist on TV, they'll go, and now Jack Nicholson having a sandwich, and this sandwich sucks, and then it was out of context. So it was really great for me to hear that album because it impacted me because I wanted to be an actor, and obviously I wasn't, doing voices, but it just gave me a better sense of structurally how to do stuff. And then when I wanted to be a writer, it was actually a big help.
What was your first impression?
My first impression, if I remember correctly, was Ed Sullivan, because I was watching the Ed Sullivan show, and a lot of the impressionists would do Ed Sullivan, as did David Fry and John Biner and all the people he had on, Rich Little. And so it was like, I was like, oh, everyone now right here on our show.
In your opinion, what sets John D. Domenico apart from other tribute acts and impressionists?
Well, I think because I'm a trained actor. I trained in New York for many years. I did off-Broadway and off-Broadway. I also did years of improv with some assembly required. I also did years of stand-up on the road. So I think what's different for me is I take all of those elements and then combine them. Because for me, I'm not doing an impression of Donald Trump or any of the other characters. What I'm trying to do is act as that character for 35, 45 minutes when I'm doing a set. I want to be in his head and I want to talk freely as him. Even though I've written the script, I want those moments. And it doesn't matter who it is, Dr. Phil or whatever. But I try to bring more of an acting element to it as opposed to an impression element to it. That's my whole thing. I want to kind of embody the person, just like any actor would in any film. That it's not a caricature, it's actually a performance.
Walk me through some of your first gigs.
Well, it's funny. I had a severe speech impediment as a child. So my first gigs were my neighborhood. In the late 60s, my neighbors would sit out. No one had air conditioning. So everyone sat out because I grew up in a neighborhood where it was all row homes.
Okay.
So it would be like 25 row homes and then another set of 25 row homes and another set of, it's all you could see. It was all there was in every direction were row homes. So I was a precocious kid, severe speech impediment. But when I did the voices, my impediment went away. But for me, my parents were like, that's amazing. Like he doesn't have the impediment when he does the voices. And then when I got into first grade after kindergarten, obviously, they diagnosed me, and then I did 8 years of speech therapy 2 times a week. What the speech pathologist explained to me was, and you probably do this, I mean, we all do it to some degree. Well, performers, and singers. So there's 2 types of speech. The way the brain works, the way your brain is built is so you can't hear yourself.
Right.
because you would drive yourself crazy. The only time you hear yourself is when you're on stage. It's like, I can hear myself. Oh, I forgot my lines. So there's voluntary speech and there's involuntary speech. Right now we're in involuntary speech. We're just speaking. If we heard a playback of this, we would go, "Is that my voice?" Even though we're performers, it's our involuntary voice, and which is I'm like Northeastern and like Joe Pesci naturally, but that voluntary thing where we manufacture the voice, we have a lot more control over it. So when I'm doing a voice, I take a lot of what the speech therapist taught me about the mechanics of sound, about throat placement, nasal placement, actual vocal production inside the mouth and vocal production outside the mouth, and then cadence, how you're speaking. So all of those elements were a big help to me when I was finally done. But even during the process, I was like, oh, well, then, if this person speaks this way, he's doing this, this, and this. And if this person speaks this way, he's doing this, this, and this. And it helps me, it helps me with certain voices, baby. Yeah.
Austin.
Yeah, baby. And if I'm doing someone like Dr. Evil, it's totally different.
Was there a defining moment when you knew that this is what you wanted to do with your life?
It was just getting in front of my neighbors, my adult neighbors, and doing the voices, and they loved it and they applauded. And my the kids who were my age were kind of like, wow, he's performing in front of our parents and they're loving it. And there was a moving truck in our neighborhood one time. Someone was getting a sofa, and I performed for the two moving guys because my friends were like, you have to see this, you have to see his act. So I did a bunch of voices and they tipped me like $1 or something, which was a lot of money. And I was like, oh, I want to do this. And then I got into shows as a kid locally, and it was just so much fun. I actually felt like it just feels right to me. You know what I mean? I'm sure you have the same experience. And then when you do get a little older, I think I was 11 or 12, and I did a show called Free to Be You and Me, which Marlo Thomas had initially produced, and this was the regional run, and I got to be in a full show, and I absolutely loved every minute of it. I loved working with adults. I was only 11, but I loved doing that show. It was just so much fun. Don't get me wrong, trying to remember that many lines when you're a kid is not easy.
My first talk show was Joe Franklin.
Oh, Joe Franklin, the great Joe Franklin.
He had Sidney Poitier on.
Wow.
And Fay Ray.
Oh.
and Michael Jackson.
King Kong. That's great. That's really cool to meet two really old school people, but Fay Ray being really old school.
Yeah, Channel 9 in Jersey.
Yeah.
Way back. Worst gig?
My worst gig was a stand-up gig, and I'll never forget this. I was doing stand-up, and I was doing really, really well, and I was a middle act, the featured act. And every now and then I would be a headliner somewhere. But I got a headlining gig in the Poconos at one of the Mount Airy Lodge or something like that. So I was headlining, doing stand-up. So I had to do 45 minutes. And I told a couple of my friends, hey, I'm doing the so-and-so room. And they're like, oh, that room is death. I was like, really? Like, yeah, that room is death. I was like, oh, well, I'm trying to stay positive. So that night I had an opening bit where I came on to Peter Gunn, doon, 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 and I would come on and I would do this posing thing where I was the poser. That was my opening shtick. So the music, had to have the music for the intro. And, that was so there now, John Dibanamanik, like I couldn't pronounce my name, which was bad enough. Then the music never came on. It never came on. So that entire bit set up my performance persona. And without that bit, I was just stuck. So it really threw me. And the closest person to me was maybe 25 feet away, which, as a performer, that's quite a distance. And the really good comedy clubs, there's one I remember in Richmond, Virginia, literally like at my feet. That's where the audience, I could reach down and put my hand on somebody's head because you want that, comedy is cool. Like the room is cool and intimate. You want people close to you. You want that relatability. You want that obligation. They're right there. Man, I went through 45 minutes of material in 25 minutes and I don't think I got 3 laughs. I literally cried from the Poconos back to New York. I was living in New York at the time, just crying my eyes out. Oh my God, why am I putting myself through this? What is wrong with me? You know, but those are the nights you learn the absolute most, you
I
know.
remember I spoke to a Tiny Tim,
Mm.
and I asked him that question. He's like, you know what? You know, no matter what goes on, it's like he said, old joke, quit show business. Yeah, right.
Well, it's a weird thing, you know. I'm 58 now, and I've been doing this my entire adult life, and there is not a day that goes by, even when I'm, on Howard Stern or doing, on a TV show or the Today Show or any of those things that I've been doing. I've been on Conan 52 times, but it's like, if someone offered me a decent amount of money with insurance, I'd take it. Like, right, I would just take it. It's harder year over, it doesn't get easier,
No, they
you
say that
know?
old entertainers never die. We just get worse gigs.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I remember that. It's so funny you mentioned. I remember this. I was hosting an event at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and there were some acts, and I think they're almost like circus acts or whatever, variety acts. And these people literally were on Ed Sullivan. Okay, and it was like a dog act, and then like uh an acrobat act. And I just remember like the woman's got the lipstick all around here, and she got the extra and and I'm thinking like this woman was on Ed's. She was literally at the top of the entertainment pyramid at one point because they were on Ed Sullivan. Now they're doing like a performance at a trade show for aging Americans.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh,
When I see the ones on the Geico commercials, I know yeah,
it's time.
it's coming to an end.
Right.
You pay tribute to nearly 3 dozen celebrities across many genres. Most notably, we have Leno, Connery,
Yeah.
and your masterful interpretation of our ex-president Donald J. Trump.
No. I'll always be president. I'm always in my mind. I'm always president. Always. I was even president before I was president.
Which character was the most challenging for you?
Challenging. It's funny when you say that. I think of like Leno only because I got to do the chin, which seems really. It's like one thing, a prosthetic chin, but it takes 2 hours to put that thing on. Hey, I know when I need the theme. you know, uh, but I'd say overall, they all equally have their own challenges. It's challenging now is because I started doing Austin Powers back in '97. It's 2021. To do like a full hour of just moving around. When I'm done now, I'm exhausted. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta lose some weight.
Who do you enjoy emulating the most?
Well, I have to go back to Austin Powers. I mean, I've
Really?
done him all over the world, and he's just so beloved. He's such a beloved character. I mean, I've literally done him in England, in Italy, in Germany, and it's just so amazing to do a character that when I'm sure, like with you, with Michael Jackson, when people see you like from like a football field away and they light up.
Yeah.
They're so excited. And that's what I think was one of the best qualities of Austin Powers. He's so happy to see you.
Yeah.
What's going on, baby? Yeah, you look absolutely fantastic. And people love that. People love to be, recognized and to be known, So that's always fun. But like with someone like Trump, there's also so much material.
Right.
When he was in office, there was literally hourly, there was new material for 4 years.
Is there one you'd be happy to never do again?
No, and I miss a lot of them. I miss because when I started, I was doing Chaplin. Not that that was a silent character, obviously, but I was much thinner, and I loved that character. I loved Groucho Marx because I've been doing him almost as long as I've been doing Ed Sullivan. Columbo. For me, it's sad because I don't do a lot of ticketed shows.
Right.
I do a lot of corporate and very specific things like on Conan and Howard. So it's mainly Trump. but those characters that kind of age out from the popular culture, that I just wish you could do them and people would know who they are, because
Right.
people just don't know necessarily who certain characters are.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, and
true.
we're so fragmented as a society now. You know, you have people who only watch HGTV, or people that only watch Fox News or
Right.
only watch ESPN. So it's so fragmented now. I added Guy Fieri when he was becoming really popular a number of years ago, and the people who knew him knew exactly who he was, but the people who didn't literally had no idea. They just had no idea because they didn't watch the Food Network, or they hadn't seen a commercial for Fridays or something. So that was weird. Then he did like one season or two seasons of Minute to Win It. Then a
Yep.
lot of people knew who he was, and then he went off the air, and it's just like whoop. It's amazing now because and I think it's the same thing. I'm not sure of your age, but yeah, 3 and 2 UHF stations. This was from coast to coast.
Oh
That
yeah.
was Maine to California. So we all had this shared cultural experience because of those 3 networks. Even if you didn't watch MASH, you knew MASH was coming to an end, or you didn't watch Dallas, but you knew about Dallas. Now with 500 channels and Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and a Roku box and this thing and that thing and a Fire Stick and all these things, you have people like my nieces and nephews who don't even watch linear, they don't even watch network TV. They don't
Yeah.
even watch it. They're watching their own shows at their own time, unless there's a breakout hit on
Right.
network. So there's nothing bringing us together culturally, and that's one of the things about Trump. Like, he's like a brand crusher. Everyone knows who he is. Michael Jackson. Everyone knows who he is. We're lucky to be able to do these characters that cut across age and
Yep.
time and all these other things that everyone knows, because there's just so few characters like that now.
Yeah, because I've known tons of impersonators. Once their character fizzed out, so did their livelihood.
Yeah. And I see some, we probably belong to a lot of the same groups on Facebook. And I see people doing characters that are like, I'm like, it's great that they can do that person, but how are they selling this character? This person's been dead for 30, 40 years. I mean, other than Marilyn Monroe and Elvis,
Yeah.
which go into that icon category,
Right.
like Michael Jackson, there are certain ones 100 years from now people are going to be doing because they are truly so iconic.
Yeah, but the people
Like,
doing like Ben Franklin and stuff like that's a very narrow.
yeah, they're not going anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're I call it that. I even think that Austin Powers, even though he's not a real person, Mike Myers did this amazing job
Right.
creating him and Dr. Evil, that he's in that iconic kind of status. And even if you don't know Austin Powers, it's just some guy in this blue
Yeah.
suit who's absolutely hilarious. That's the beauty of the way he designed the character.
So the human skull's acoustics, they make us hear our own voice differently than someone listening to us, like you were talking about before.
Well, we don't even hear it.
Right. So which of the characters that you imitate sounds the most authentic to you in playback?
Well, to me, I think Austin sounds, because we're really Mike Myers and I are like the same age and the same height and the same weight, and we both have a round face. Or literally, structurally, we're the same person, big cheeks. But also, I think with Trump, only because I've done over 10,000 hours of him, and I've been doing him since 2004. So I've really paid a lot of attention to the way he speaks. And it's so unusual, and that weird cadence that he has, and that Northeast nasality, and the throatiness, and those weird pronunciations for no reason. All of those different things that he does. I've probably studied him more than any other single person. And also in the last 5 years, I've literally done him every single day, sometimes for 4 and 5 hours, just because of voiceovers. And I lend my voice to 2 different shows, the Trump Cast and to a show in Australia called Planet America. So I was doing all that, just every single day, and watching. And, I think I'm very, very close, very close.
No one can emulate someone 100%.
Right. That's true.
So what percentage of John carries over to your onstage persona?
I think I think there's a large percentage of it. I have people, and it's funny you asked that because um, I'm kind of a warm, gregarious person. I think that carries over to all of my characters and even Trump, because people say to me, like, I like your Trump. That's the nice Trump. I'm not the mean Trump. But I have people from high school who will message me through Facebook and go, I think I heard you on Howard Stern. So my voice is in there enough that people who know me recognize my voice. I wish I could disappear into the voice so much where people couldn't recognize it, but obviously I'm leaving my stamp
Right.
on the voice,
Right.
intentionally or unintentionally.
When I hear you on Stern or any show, I know your voice. I know you're Trump. I mean,
that's what a lot of people say. They're like, I knew it was you. I knew it.
Yeah. Describe getting into character, the prep, the physicalities, the movements, voice.
Well, for Austin, I always have the music on because I have to start, like you said, the physicality, the moving rate. Yeah. So I'll listen to the song. I'll listen to Soul Bossa Nova over and over and over again. And then it's just getting on the makeup and putting the teeth in, staining my lower teeth, getting the wig on, getting the suit on. And, it's funny because with Austin, obviously, I'm putting the pants on, but then I'm putting the undershirt on. Then I'm putting the puffy shirt on. Then I'm putting the cravat on. And I'm sure you experience this as you do each layer of each thing, the wardrobe, the makeup, the teeth, whatever you're doing, the chin for Leno, you're becoming the character because there's a cellular memory of having done this so many times that when you do certain things, it kind of reactivates stuff in you that goes beyond like your intellectual kind of your thinking. It goes on to this physicality, baby. Yeah.
Those are my best compliments when I'm done with the show, when people come up to me after the show and they're like, what I liked most about it was the little tiny things.
Yes.
The little movements,
the details
that you don't even realize that you're doing consciously.
Right.
They said that's what they admire the most. And that's
they really, I've heard it and I'm sure you've heard it where people go, man, God, when you did that one thing or the way you said that one thing or you turned that certain way or you put your hands up, they're like, man, it was weird. Like for that second, I knew it wasn't him, but I thought it was him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when you're that performance, when we're in the zone as a performer and we're riding that tube inside the wave and it's just coming to us freely, that's when like people are like, wow. And that's when for us, it's the most, as a performer, you're like, oh, I'm here. There's nothing worse than having like a crappy performance. But man, when you're in the zone, it's the best because the audience is with you. You're with the audience. You're kind of doing that give and take of energy. It's the best.
How do you approach new impressions? Like, is it systematic? A, B, C, D?
Yeah, what I try to do is like I'm working on Ted Cruz, Ted Cruz, and I'm trying to find his voice. And that's more of I know right now it's too early. It's kind of cartoony, but what I'm always looking for is, with him, his voice is in the back of his throat. So it's like Ted Cruz. So I try to approach it systematically, like throat placement, nasal placement, and and sometimes if I have trouble with a voice, I'm thinking like, who's he close to?
Right.
Like maybe there's something in that. I was working on a voice, and someone said, "Why are you listening to that?" And I said, "Because I'm trying to figure out how they're." Oh, I think it was Al Pacino. I think I was listening to Al Pacino. Yeah, hooah, because his voice has changed. But I was trying to listen to his younger voice and figure out how he got from where he was from like The Godfather to where he is now. Because he's got that thing where he kind of gets very sing-songy, and I'm just so and his voice has become very I don't think hoarse is the right word, but if you listen to his voice in The Godfather, it's almost clear. And now he's got this gravelly thing. If you saw like, the devil's advocate, God is an absentee landlord, And I was talking about Columbo before. Folks, I hate to bother you. One more thing. So And it turned out that Peter Falk said when he was doing Columbo, he was actually doing Humphrey Bogart. So, Bogey spoke a certain way because he had a speech impediment too, because his tongue was almost like he had marbles in his mouth.
It's very close. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, so I'm always looking for like a connect, like where can I like make a bridge to get to another voice? Even when I was, even though I'd been doing Trump for quite a long time, I was thinking like, I want to make this voice better. I want to make it more detailed. I want more depth to the voice. I was thinking, who else is from Queens? Who else talks like this? Is there anybody that talks like Trump? And I realized Christopher Walken does the same thing as Trump. He's got that staccato thing when he talks. Wow. So I was like, oh, so if you take Christopher Walken and kind of pull him into the Trump voice, then you've got that staccato, to build a new voice that way. And I'll probably look into Lindsey Graham. I mean, Trump has literally sucked the oxygen out of pop culture for the last, 5 years.
So speaking of Trump, tell me about your new cinematic adventure, Orange Acres.
Working with Michaela Gordon. She was one of the semifinalists on American Idol. And we started doing some Trump Melania videos together, and they did really, really well. Like one of them has almost 700,000 views, and they were just quick comedy snippets. And we would, 2 and 3 minute things. And I thought, let's take this to the next level instead of almost like, blackout sketches. Let's go with something a little longer, a little more narrative. And I said, Trump's, they're saying he's $400 million in debt, which he was $12 billion in debt before. He's going to be out of the White House. He's going to need a job. Why don't we do Orange Acres? And I had remembered that Trump had sung Green Acres with Megan Mullally at the Emmys, like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And I just remember thinking like, this is perfect. She's Zsa Zsa, Melania Zsa Zsa. Trump is,
Really
the
is.
Woody Albert's character, and they're forced to do these things. So it's a little bit of, what was the thing with Paris Hilton and
Nicole
Lionel
Simpson.
Richie's Simple Life. So it's Green Acres, it's Simple Life, it's Dirty Jobs, it's all those elements all mixed into one. So they're court ordered they're court ordered to get a job, but they keep losing their job. So they have to get another job. So the court finds them another job and another job and another job.
Like a marriage, over the years, you begin to pick up some idiosyncrasies, mannerisms, and even habits of your characters. Some unconscious and some others consciously.
Right.
Have you ever developed any performance characteristics that have carried over into your personal life?
Oh, 100%. Because, with the height of the whole Austin Powers thing, probably after the second movie, I would end phone calls with, yeah, baby. It just came out naturally. Because, like you didn't know how to end a conversation. Like, yeah, baby, I'll talk to you tomorrow. So all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, it's kind of inculcating. But with Trump, because I was doing him so much, even my family said, like, you do realize you're talking like him all the time, right? You do realize that. No, I'm not. You're a loser. And my brother Michael said, like, your voice has gone down, like, almost like an octave, and it is much scratchier now. So I did find myself, I even like now, I'll go, right. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing Trump. Like, because you're just in the character all the time. So I have to be really, even this, I find myself doing that. Like, what am I doing?
In that vein, I enjoy the fact that I can do a show in front of thousands of people and then take off my makeup.
And they have no idea who you are.
Walk back out there and then no one's the wiser. Do you like the anonymity of being a tribute artist? You can just do your character, get undone, and be back to John.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Here's the thing. We've met very famous people. You've met famous people. I've met famous people. There's one thing about being rich and famous, that's wonderful. But being poor and famous, not so much. Not so much, So it's not, I don't have a security team and, so it's nice when I'm fully out of makeup because when I'm on stage, I look taller. because there's no one standing next to me. So their point of reference is Trump is 6'3". So in their minds, I'm 6'3". So when I'm out of makeup, shaved head, pot belly, walking around, they're just thinking I'm just some middle-aged guy who can't grow his hair out. So then I just kind of disappear, which is really nice. It's nice to have the adulation, but at a certain point, you can't control fame.
Right.
And I've been very lucky to meet some very famous people, and they have said, every one of them have said, like, yeah, it's not that great.
Yeah.
It's nice to be famous on paper, but in real life, it's a tremendous pain in the ass.
Yeah, many people I've talked to have compared it to being kind of like a prison.
Yeah, because you'll go out with your wife or your date or whoever you're with, and you're interrupted constantly. And people are like, I hate to bother you while you're eating.
Have you ever had any close encounters with any of your muses?
I've had
because actually I was in the hallway with Trump once. I did a performance at a Trump Tower annual employee Christmas party back in the 80s.
Wow.
And he came down the hallway, popped in the room, and said hello to us for a quick.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Isn't the food great? The food's fantastic here.
So have you met any of your muses?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've met Trump a number of times, but this was way back in 90. I was doing a show at Trump Plaza. Then I co-hosted his 55th birthday at Trump Castle, where I'm sure you worked at many times. So I met him then. I did a bit with him on stage where I jumped out of they rolled me in a giant cake. The cake cracked open and I sprung out. And then I brought him 24 models up on stage. And we did a bit. And we ended my whole bit was ending the party with him. But he was fun. I got to meet him beforehand, at the rehearsal. And it was very interesting. He's an incredibly charming and charismatic guy when he wants to be.
Yeah. Who was your biggest brush with celebrity?
I think the coolest thing that happened to me was I got a call from a friend who says, Jill Soloway wants to talk to you. And Jill Soloway her show Transparent had just won an Emmy or a People's Choice Award, and she wanted to develop a show about Trump. So she called me, we did a Zoom thing, and we actually started the process of developing a show. And then that show, her show, Transparent, had an issue with one of the leads. So she couldn't pursue my thing anymore. She had to go put that fire out because we had done we did one performance, very special audience. She liked it and was going to pursue it. I was just honored that had happened. But I was also flown out to LA to meet a studio head during the height of when Trump first got in. They wanted to do something. They didn't know what they wanted to do, but they said, we want to do something with you. And that was really cool to be flown out, to have like a lunch meeting. Like that to me was really, really exciting. But I've gotten to do a bunch of commercials with some really well-known people. Most recently, Larry King, which was very nice.
With documentaries like Almost Famous.
Yes, yeah.
And Just About Famous. And I don't know if you saw Bronx Obama.
Oh, yeah, I did. I actually worked with him a lot. I'm in that. I'm in that a lot, actually.
Is there a documentary, in your opinion, about tribute artists out there that gets it right?
Well, I think, all these things want to be entertaining, but I think all of us, it's like being an actor in a sense, all of us have had a different experience getting to where we are. We're all doing different characters. Some people lip sync, some people sing, some people there's lots of Trump, but they don't write. They're not comedy writers,
right.
So they're able to do hello everybody, really, really huge, and then that's it. That's kind of the extent of their bit. So everybody's different, and I think we've all experienced this whole world differently. But I think Almost Famous, I did see that, and I thought that was, showed the day in and day out and stuff. And I don't know if you've ever gotten this. This is what cracks me up, because I do, all these different characters. I've worked all over the world. I've done feature films and TV shows and TV appearances. But when people say to you, like, so what do you do during the week? I mean, what are you talking about? I sell cars. What do you think? I'm a neurosurgeon. You think you just pop in on the week? And I go, by the way, it's Wednesday. This is the week.
Being almost famous, are you content with your level of success? Is it ever
No,
is it ever
no,
frustrating?
I'm not.
Is it ever frustrating to come so close to stardom and then have it remain just out of reach?
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, I've been on Conan 52 times. And the thing is, if this were back when there were 3 networks, I'd have my own television show. I mean, can you imagine that many appearances? I've shared the stage with him, I've done sketches with him, all of these things. But because there's so much stuff, I mean, I did 50 appearances on Fox, 52 on Conan, 12 appearances on the Today Show in Australia. 12, and each one of those were 6 minutes, and I wrote all the material.
Oh man.
And it's like it's different now because there's just so much content and there's so much stuff, and I'm obviously limited because I'm doing a character and I'm not myself.
Right.
But just like in the whole sphere of what we're doing, so many appearances, and it feels like all the movements very incremental. I was just, Howard Stern was incredible this week. He said he's great. He's like John D. Domenico. He's great. I love that guy.
I
He's
heard
so
that.
funny.
We're going to get into that.
The best Trump we've ever had. Best Trump in 4 years. I mean,
Yep.
that's a hell of a comment.
I heard
Even
that.
Yeah, even if that was 25 years ago, that would be a game changer. Unfortunately, nothing's a game changer. You know what I mean? A guy on TikTok skateboarding with cranberry juice. That's a game changer. Please explain this to me. You know what I mean? I've trained as an actor. I've trained as a comedian. I've trained as a writer. I've got 10,000 hours of performance. It's like this guy has a TV series now. I can't explain. You know what I mean? It's like, what? I'm on TikTok. I have 4 million followers, which I'm truly grateful for. But the thing is, like, I'm watching some of these TikToks that get a bazillion views. I'm thinking, like, am I missing something?
No.
You get it. You work really hard. You work on your voice. You work on your moves. You work on your costume. You stay in shape. You eat right. You know what I mean? You do everything that you need to do. You stay mentally healthy. You stay physically healthy. And then someone does something and you're like, what happened? What?
Getting to Trump, you've been impersonating Trump since 2004?
2004. I'm the 3rd person ever to appear on national television as Trump.
So looking back on the first 4 years of his presidency, and specifically the last couple of weeks, what are the burdens and rewards now of being a Trump impersonator, especially in today's highly charged climate?
For the most part, overall, it's been really, really positive. There are people, I've gotten the death threats. I get physical violence threats. I get all this stuff. I get, but it's such a tiny percentage.
Right.
And it's always coordinated. I've noticed like certain YouTube videos, like it's weird because I think someone in a room on Facebook somewhere says this guy, and all of a sudden it's like boom, 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 negative. But, out of like 700, 800, 1,000 comments, when a tiny percentage of them is negative, I can't,
Right.
I don't know if you get negative stuff like
that. Oh
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you something interesting. In a way, I was mildly prepared for it.
Right.
I still do Ozzy Osbourne. I love Ozzy, but I did an Ozzy video. This is easily 12 years ago. Easily, maybe more. He's getting old, man. Sharon, the whole bit. I got the most vicious, meanest. I mean, it was unbelievable how mean and then in a sense, they kind of prepared me for the Trump stuff. It was very interesting because I was like, first of all, who's the time to write this stuff? And then second of all, it's an impersonation. It's an impression. But man, people take things very personally. And I'm sure with your character, it being so beloved and also kind of, there's some negativity too, but I can't imagine some of the comments you get.
When summoning the Trump persona, do you have any difficulty quelling your own personal political beliefs while in character?
No. And, doing theater off Broadway, once I played a racist. It was the true story about the last group of people who were part of a firing squad. And it was the last military firing squad in our country, and I played this character. And guy was a devout racist, and it was about racism and all these different things. But it was a great character. So politically, here's my thing about politics in general with performers. We're all citizens, and you can have your politics. But honestly, for me, especially with this character, and I believe this with any character, my politics in any shape, way, or form should not seep into my performance.
Right.
And I've said this in other interviews, like Alec Baldwin, and I've worked with Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin hates Trump. And I think that actually, he's an amazing actor, but I think it actually seeps into his performance how much he dislikes him, and it creates this kind of internal disconnect.
Right.
I focus on the fact that I find Trump fascinating. As a character study, he's fascinating. My political view should not be infused into the performance. And secondly, I'm not going to change anybody's mind.
No.
You know what I mean? So I want to and pretty much in this country now, you could split the audience in half. It could be 50% pro-Trump, 50% anti-Trump. My goal is to entertain the entire audience. If
Right.
I can write my material smart enough that both sides laugh, that to me is a win. So when I had a show running out here in Las Vegas at the Sahara, my goal was to do that, and people would come up to me after the show and go, "We're from Minnesota, we're big Trumpers, but that was absolutely hilarious." And 10 seconds later, two guys from San Francisco come up and go, "We hate Trump, but that was hilarious." So then I've struck the right note. I'm entertaining both sides, and I'm not taking a side in the performance of him.
Yeah, I've experienced that. I've had people that, either their sons or daughters drag them to the show, and they would come to me and I say, "You know what? I wasn't an MJ fan when I got here, but I am now." So,
Right.
yeah.
And then you've done your job. You've actually entertained people, and that's really all we can ask for. It's tough it's gotten obviously much edgier now because of the Capitol attack and all those types of things. But I'm just trying to remove myself from that and do this alternate version of Trump.
Obama impersonator Reggie Brown, I don't know if you saw that, but he was hired at the GOP leadership conference.
Yeah, I know you, Reggie, really well. We've
And,
worked together a lot.
All was well received as he made fun of Obama, to the delight of the partygoers there. But he was ushered off stage mid-performance when he went off script and made fun of some of the prominent GOP leaders. So you performed your Trump bit on both right-wing and left-wing news networks.
Yeah, I've done both. I've done GOP events. I've done DNC events, but I don't change it. Because the beauty of Trump is he's like Don Rickles. You know what I mean?
Is there a fundamental difference in how the right-wing clients approach you as opposed to the left-wing clients?
Well, here's what's interesting. That's a great question. I am vetted for GOP and RNC events. They'll literally go through my videos. They'll go through interviews, and because they've told me, you've been cleared to perform. So because they'll even say, "Have you said anything negative about the president?" And I said, "No, I haven't." And I said, "You can check," and they go, "We will." But within the performance space, if I'm doing him a certain way, and there's more of a Orange Acres, it's more of a cartoony version of Trump. So if you're going to have issues with that, then it's
when performing as Trump, are you mindful of what you should and should not say? And is there any conversation topics that you do not or would not engage in?
I would engage in everything except they'll tell me on the DNC side, there's no limit, so to speak. On the RNC side, they'll say, "Don't mention this, and don't mention this." But they still don't, on both sides, it's interesting because no one looks at my script.
Right.
They'll just tell me, "Don't do this or don't do that." So, and obviously you as a performer, you read your audience.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was where was I? Southern Illinois. I was in South Illinois doing a GOP event. I think it was the Reagan Day event. And this was a lot of older white people in rural, you know what I mean? Like, you can gauge your audience pretty much, So obviously I'm going to hammer the left a little more with that group, and they're going to get a big kick out of it.
Yeah, I can tell when I do theaters, if it's a theater where people just go to every show at that theater.
Yes.
Or if it's a theater where, it's filled with Michael Jackson fans. I mean, it's a huge difference.
Yeah.
As a Michael Jackson impersonator, August 1993 was my day of reckoning. That was when Michael Jackson the accusations came out.
Yeah.
So I ran the gamut of emotions from, I hope this is not true. What do I do if it is true? And then I took a beat and watching all the coverage and doing my own extensive research into it, I came to the conclusion that it just wasn't true. And for a time, business came to a screeching halt. And then it shifted from my usual theater and concert performance offers to clients that wanted to make fun of Michael Jackson and exploit the situation. Like the Maury Povages and the Rich, those guys kind of came out of the woodworks. And I heard from everyone. I heard from Oprah Winfrey, Billboard Magazine, Major Motion Pictures wanted me to do, satirical appearances, talk shows, stuff like that. And I simply turned everyone down because I just wasn't interested in taking advantage of what I thought and believed to be untruthful. But during the prep for this, you and I talked a little bit about how you lost some work from clients as a result of the recent developments.
Yeah.
And surrounding Trump, and how similar in offers it happened to you. So what were your feelings on January 6th, 2021?
You mean as how it affects me as Trump?
Right.
Or
you as Trump, and you as personally, your personal impersonations and work.
When they tore down the American flag at the Capitol and put up a Trump flag, I remember thinking like, oh God.
Bring back Austin.
Yeah, I was like, this is not good. And then then the Confederate flag was in the Capitol, and then obviously people unfortunately have, passed away, and deaths are related to it. It's a tricky issue. Obviously, like I told you, I had some pro-Trump videos I was going to shoot for clients. Obviously, we're not live performing because of the pandemic. But even they were like, let's switch to another character. So I had 3 major either videos or Zoom jobs, actually 4 now that I think about it, because another one just jumped ship. And it was just one of those, hey, we're in a world where things can change on a dime. So, if Mike Myers murdered somebody, they probably would excise Austin Powers. This is one of those things where, what I've heard from even people who like my videos on YouTube, they're like, it's just after the 6th, it's just not funny anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're fans, but they're like, please do something else. We like you, but this isn't good. So it's a really weird place to be in, that 74 million people like this guy may not like my Trump. And then, 81 million people, there might be a space in there for a comedic interpretation of Trump. But then I get messages like, why are you glorifying this guy? Why are you keeping this guy alive? Why are you keeping this guy relevant? So it's a fine line. The thing is, I'm a satirist. I'm a comedian. This is what I do.
Right.
It's what I do.
It's your bit.
If you don't like it, don't watch.
Yeah.
Or watch and just don't comment.
So after all of this that's going on, especially with Trump, have you ever personally considered getting politically involved?
I've always thought that, because going back to the very first album, that I've always had a weird interest in politics. So I my senior year of college, I said to my guidance counselor, I said, I don't want to do something in the entertainment industry. I don't want to work at the Walnut Street Theater in Philadelphia. I don't want to do this or do that. Or I said, I would like to do something in politics in some way, maybe an internship. So I was able to get an internship with U.S. Senator Arlen Specter. So I spent a year as an intern for a United States senator, and which was great because I got to do a lot of constituency work. I got to see legislation. I got to see bills. I got to understand this process a lot more with the boots on the ground feel, because I'm in the office of a United States senator. So it was it was very gratifying. It was something that I wanted to do. It's something totally different than performing and all that. That's why it was really heartbreaking for me to see what happened at the Capitol, that
Yeah.
terrorists terrorized the Capitol.
Yeah.
It's one of the most secure buildings in the United States,
Yeah.
and people died. So
Yeah.
it was very, very upsetting as someone who spent a year as an intern
Yeah. I think it changed the whole vibe and feeling around Trump alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, to see people who say they're patriots and say
Yeah.
they're Americans beating cops
Yeah.
with U.S. flag, I was like, what is happening? This is bad. No, there's no matter how you slice it, like this is bad.
Yeah. There was no,
So it was
exactly.
very,
There was
very
no way to
sad.
spin that. There was no way to
Yeah,
spin
there's
that.
no way to spin it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people. We've seen the videos. It's just a sad situation.
Yep. Let's talk about our mutual acquaintance, the great Howard Stern.
Oh yeah.
We both had the pleasure of working directly with him. I appeared in his best-selling book, Miss America, back in the day.
Wow. That's so cool.
And I've been witness to a number of your appearances on his Sirius XM show. Stern has personally praised you as one of the best Trump impersonators in the country.
John D. Domenico is the #1 Donald Trump impersonator in the world. Good voice, too. Isn't he fabulous?
And I consider Stern one of the best interviewers of our generation, anyway.
Amazing.
And most of your appearances on his show have been largely unscripted.
We're some, yes. What we do is we have a script that we work from, and then when we're done, that's when we improvise.
Do you prefer ad-libbing with him, or are you more?
Oh, I would absolutely. I would prefer to ad lib, but they're very they like to do the show a specific way. So at least there's a premise and there's some things that we want to hit, and then we can, once we get beyond the scripted part, then we improvise.
I recently listened to your "We Are the Trumps."
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
That was awesome. Whose idea was that, and how did it come about, and who wrote it?
It was their Howard, actually, one of my appearances after the election, Howard broke character, which he never broke my character. And he said, so John, what are you going to do after this? What are you going to do? And I said, oh, there's plenty, and I do mean this, there's plenty of work.
Right.
You just have to, you have to be a hustler too in this business. But I said, there's going to be plenty of work. Don't worry about me and blah, 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 blah. And that was the kernel of an idea that all of us Trump impersonators are going to be out of a job. So I think he told his writers to put something together.
Yeah.
About Trump, how and he also went on Cameo and saw a bunch of us. And so it was kind of a germ of an idea, and it grew and grew and grew. And they said, we're going to have you sing this song, and then we'll get some other Trump, some of the other Trumps we've had on, like Ben Campbell, Kyle Dunnigan. And then they did, I kind of had the lead, and then they did the additional parts.
Some fun questions before we go. Most used app on your phone?
Wow, that's a great question. Probably YouTube.
Really?
Because I'm always watching myself.
When was the last time you did something for the first time?
Wow. Well, probably in June when I first appeared on Howard Stern.
Really?
There's not a lot of new stuff when you're locked in your house.
The first car you made out in?
That was a Mercury Monterey. Oh, no. I take that back. I think it was my friend's Pinto. I was a freshman, and I mean, really making out. And she was a senior, smoking hot. I'd love to be able to say her name, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But that was some deep. He literally drove us around so we could make out, so we wouldn't get in trouble. Because we had no place to go. Could go to my house because there were like 9 people in one house in a shoebox. And her dad wasn't having it with me.
Greatest opening lyric of all time.
Wow. I'm thinking of like a Boz Scaggs song.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, probably. This is actually the chorus, but danger, there's a breakdown dead ahead. I don't know why that popped in my head.
Love Boz Scaggs.
Desert Island album for sure.
Movie you repeatedly watch.
Wow. There's so many, but I'll tell you, and I know a lot of people say this, but for some reason, I've literally watched Goodfellas 25 times.
Mm.
It's just the pacing of that movie. And there's a lot of movies I'll watch. My fiance will go, why are you watching this movie again? Because I'll pick and rewatch a film. And I'm like, I'm just amazed by the performance and the production. And, you know, I've watched You've Got Mail many times. Many times. Because it's in New York, and I love New York, and I love the Upper West Side. But also, romantic comedies are really hard to make because you know the outcome of them in advance.
Right.
So if they can keep that chemistry going, it's pretty amazing.
If allowed one book in your possession, what would it be?
Oh my God. I've reread On the Road by Jack Kerouac probably 15 times, and I'll go back and reread sections of it. And I own multiple copies of it. So I would say On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
Favorite cartoon character growing up?
It had to be Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny, you know, this Brooklynese rabbit was perfect. Could get out of anything, talk his way out of anything. I was like, I want to be that rabbit.
A habit you'd like to break?
Biting my nails.
Same here.
Yeah. To this day.
Me too.
I've gone through periods where I don't do it, and then one day and then it's over.
Your go-to karaoke song?
Mac the Knife.
I travel quite a bit, and I found that travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, narrow-mindedness. You learn that all people cry, laugh, work, worry, and die.
Yeah, we're all the same.
Was traveling a similar experience for you?
Well, traveling for me is the greatest thing because I come from like basically a poor family. My dad had a 9th grade education. He was a steel worker. We never traveled. We never, ever traveled. I wasn't on a plane until I think I was 18 or 19 years old. You know, so now before the pandemic, traveling 25, 30 weeks a year, it's a life-changing experience. I've gotten to work all over the world. It opens your mind up to how other places work, that America is an island. Even working in Canada is different than the US. You wouldn't think that, but like, oh, this is actually a foreign country. They speak our language. So I think it's been a wonderful experience for me to open my mind, to grow as a person, to understand other cultures, to get the benefit of having different foods and seeing how not everyone is American in the sense that everyone wants to slit everybody's throat and run everybody over and work nonstop. I mean, I'm a workaholic. That's just how I am. But it's nice to go to other parts of the world. And I don't mean the Bahamas. I mean, like, you know, other European countries where people have this great life work balance. You know, as an actor, I love cinema and I love independent films and I love art and all those things that we're kind of losing sight of here. We're becoming so consumed with politics in this country and we're getting away from, I think, the deeper things artistically in life that are actually very enriching. We're being depleted by the wrong things that we're feeling that have a value to them. And I don't think they do. We're becoming more divided. I think we can agree on more things than less things at this point. And I think art can do that. I know that sounds crazy, but I really do think that art and music and cinema and all those things can bring us together. At least there's a cultural point where we can come together. Not everything has to be political.
And I think on your point there, I think the reason it's so divisive is because the art, cinema, all of that is at the bottom of the list.
And it's also become politicized, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the one thing that brings us together, but it's the one thing that's not even being looked at during this pandemic.
Yeah, and I was amazed by this fact. You know, in Germany, and this is an old statistic, but I don't know if it's still, but at one point they subsidized 240 theaters around the country because they knew how important theater was for people, live theater, for people to get in, see performances, be engaged for that 92 hour, those 2 hours, because this is something that goes back in time. Storytelling goes back to cavemen. You know, Shakespeare, it was for the people, by the way. It wasn't an elitist thing. Shakespeare was for the people. Like, they came there to see a show, to escape and to learn something new. That's why the shows were set in other parts of the world that Shakespeare himself had never been to. He hadn't been to Egypt. He hadn't been to, you know, the Netherlands, were, you know.
Yeah, I think that the lockdown in particular made people realize how unimportant the Kardashians are.
Right.
It made you realize what's really important is what we miss the most.
Right. I think it's true. And it's, you know, if there's been a lot of negative things, and obviously the pandemic's been politicized too, but I think for the most part, it's reset a lot of relationships. Fathers who work all the time, and moms too, have gotten to spend this amazing amount of time with their kids, which they never, ever would have. And this is going to be over in, oh God, I hope, dear God. But, you know, that time, those kids, all the pandemic kids and the pandemic babies, well, not the pandemic babies, but kids who got to spend all that really great quality time with their mom, with their dad, that's not going to reoccur again. They're going to go back to work, and they're going to go back to doing their things, and they're going to travel again, and there's going to be that separation. So it's really a wonderful, wonderful thing in that sense. Obviously the pandemic itself has been, you know, economy destroying, you know, nightmare, and it's affected everyone we know. You know, a lot of the performers we know they live check to check, if they have a check, and it's not even a regular check, it's a performance check, and a month goes by and it's a performance check. So it's been very tough on where I am in Las Vegas, because, you know, I'm lucky I can work remotely, I can shoot videos, but the lighting guy and the sound guy and the ticket taker and the ushers and the scenic guy and a lot of the singers here in town and a lot of the comedians and, you know, the parking people, all those things, that you need people. You need people for that.
Yeah, that's what devastated Broadway. I mean,
you know, and I always, when I go back, if I have a show in New York, I always tack on a few days, try to see a show. Like the last time I was back, I think I saw The Prom and Hades Town and all these shows, and they're fantastic. But what I was thinking about is how old those theaters are and how you're literally sitting on top of the next person. I mean, seriously, like those theaters are so old. I think people were like this big.
It's going to be interesting, you know, watching it come back, because even now they're at minimum capacity or limited capacity. And I just have so many friends in that industry, you know, besides actors and singing, but, you know, people who work behind the scenes, and just watching the struggle that they're really going through.
It's horrible. It's really horrible. And I know from my dad being a steel worker in the 70s with like, you know, not a depression, but the economy was really bad, really bad. And he had 5 kids, and he's trying to feed 5 kids. And we would eat, you know, literally weeks at a time, we'd have stew just over and over. We'd have the same meals over and over and over and over, because that's how you got through. It was rice and beans, unfortunately, because when you got one person making the breadwinner. My heart goes out to every single performer, every artist, every lighting person, every sound person, anybody who's struggling right now, whatever field you're in.
Yeah.
So, you know, I pray that this is over soon and we get back.
So, listen, before we go, anything you want to add that we didn't?
Well, if anybody wants to book me, I'm on Cameo. You can find me there for birthday greetings, whatever it is, for anything. I've done retirements, I've done new jobs, I've done We Hate the Pandemic, whatever it is, and not just as Trump, but as Austin or any of my characters. Also, please, please, please go to YouTube, find me on YouTube. I'm John D. Domenico Comedy. Subscribe, watch the videos, so that I can make some money.
John, thank you very much. It's been a blast.
Oh, thanks, Joby. Great having great. I was going to say great having me on. No, but it's great to be on. You're a great interview. You totally get it because you're from our world. So
yeah, and as I said before on social media with you, I am extremely proud of your work, and
thank you.
Thank you for
you
what
too,
you
man. We're staying in the game. It reminds me of the book, The Kid Stays in the Picture. We're staying in the picture.
Indeed, man. Peace.
All right, dude. See you, man.
Be
Thank
safe.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.